Welcome to Deep Thought. Work through one problem at a time. All right, so in my last podcast, I talked about several problems hitting at once. And that happens. But I also said unless it's an absolute thing where you have to react to right away, sit back and relax, meditate, get all that stress out. Then you still have to solve the problem. They don't go away. You just getting rid of the stress first. You working through any negative feelings first, because especially if it hits at one time. Because usually, I'm going to tell you what, or at least I do this. I like order. So I like when everything's in order. When something gets out of order, that can mess up my own equilibrium. So I definitely have to calm down first. Some other people might not be that. Some people might be used to the chaos, whatever. So it's ultimately, anything I suggest on here, you still have to apply it to yourself. You don't have to follow what I'm saying word for word. You can even disagree with some things respectfully. Because ultimately it has to work for you. If I'm saying something like, if your idea of working through a problem is just to, regardless of what it is, just to solve it right away because you don't get stressed easily, hey, more power to you. More power, because ultimately, and let me just say this, because I do tangents on the Deep Thought channel. Ultimately, everybody got to respond to stuff that's natural to their own being. All I can do is throw out perspective. That's all I do. Even on my men's channel where I'm talking about relationships or telling men how they can get women. Perspective. On my business channel. Perspective. On my Hello Ladies channel. Perspective. Everybody has to really work out stuff. Now, Rom's perspective on dealing with these problems. Work them out one at a time. If you have several, like say 7 things hit at once, and it could be more, it could be less, it could be 2 things hitting at once. First, prioritize everything. That's the first thing. Prioritize what needs to be taken care of right away. Okay. Start working on that first. Or just sit down and make a list if you need to. Write it down. Figure out the dates. Like I said, the thing that inspired that podcast was several things hitting at once, starting with my car. So, I did my rest thing, got calm. Now I have my plan to deal with everything. So after I finish recording, I'm going to put the plan into play. So, and it's something, I actually had to wait for a bank to open up first. So I was like, oh, okay. But that's the first thing. Now, the other problems is stuff, it's like, all right, I had to put some stuff into play to deal with that. But isn't that something I got to jump on right away? And it's not really even my personal problem, but it's an issue with someone I'm dealing with, in my circle. I'll put it like that. And that's somebody I'm romantically dealing with, just to be clear. And then, I had, another person, they were going through some stuff. So it's like, okay, I got to deal with that. But in general, though, regardless of what it is, I'll just mention the personal things with, what I might be happening. But, like I said, you could have several things. You could have 10 things going on at once. And then, whatever. All you can do is first you calm down. And then if you got to write it down, if you can just remember everything easily, okay, still do this in your mind, but you can do it with a piece of paper. And it's back, that would be a good option. Just write it down. Okay, you got this issue coming up. Write that down. Work on that issue. Avoid working on the other issues unless it's something that's need to be done right away. And if it does need to be done right away, it might need to be the first issue. But if it doesn't overcome it, but you might, it might be something where, okay, maybe it's an issue with a friend or something. You might need to just talk to them while helping them. I mean, and that might all it take. Now that you can put on there, but try to prioritize. Okay, you got this major issue coming up. that you got to deal with. That's the first thing. You figure out how you're going to solve that problem. You work on it. Maybe if you need to write down stuff, write down what your plan is. If you can remember it easily. But take it one step at a time. Like I mentioned about the car, there's certain steps I need to take first. Certain things I need to do. So I already have the plan, what to do. Well, start enacting it. The other things, it's just, okay, let me take care of this and everything. But work through one problem at a time, because one of the problems with trying to solve everything at once, you actually bring that stress back. You actually bring that stress back. And the nature of problems, all of them ain't going to have the same priority. They're not going to affect you the same way, unless, and in most cases, 99% of the time, is not something where you got to have an immediate response to it anyway. Because here's the reality. You can't solve them all at once anyway, like just right then. Even if it's happening, it's like some stuff you're going to have to prioritize. It's like, on battlefields, they had doctors, and they get wounded, and they would just prioritize. Okay, who's really bleeding? Who's on the verge of death? All right, they first. Who's just in pain? Okay, we'll get to you, but we'll deal with this first. You got to have that. It's called triage. You got to have that same thing when you're dealing with problems. So, okay, the main problem, you start dealing with that first. All right, you go through step by step, and and you solve it. I got something to say about that step by step too. Okay, you take care of that problem. Then you go on to the next one and the next one. Before you know it, everything is taken care of. Now, one of the things is very important to really be calm as you're going through those problems. It's a single problem. Because even then, yes, you will calm down to deal with and release the stress, but you still need to be calm going through it. You need to try to still have that same technique of just relaxing your body, breathing and everything. Only difference this time is while you're doing that, you're still taking action. And you can still take it in a state of calm, a state of peace. And it's actually better if you do that, because then you can just work through it nice and slowly. And then you're not going with emotion and stuff. Because there's been times I've done that, and I was just nice and calm, was able to do stuff. Stuff was coming up, and I was able to take care of it. I was just able to take care of it. I didn't get upset, wasn't jumping around, but you're just calm. And then, and you never know what can come from it. So you work through it. And, another thing with doing all of that, sometimes as you're working through a problem, you can see, well, it's not really a problem. Let me touch on that. It might seem like a problem, but it might be a blessing in disguise. I use the car example again. Okay, I'm just getting a better car. You can travel better with it. So it's not a bad thing. Can afford it. So it's like, oh, okay. Because I don't know. Like, this car could have been a problem on a major highway or something. So it's like, it's always a silver lining. You don't know what's happening. Yeah, it seems inconvenient, any problems, but there's always a silver lining. There's something I learned from my grandmother. So you be calm, and then, as you're going through, be open for that silver lining. You might see it's like, wow, this is actually a good thing. This is actually a good thing. You be in a better spot. Usually when stuff happen like that bad, it's all for me anyway. It's always something good that happens out of it. Always. There's never something that's been bad and it was bad later on too. Even got worse. It was no matter how bad it looked, there was always a silver lining in there. And that's everything. That's just life. And that's another reason to stay calm. You never know how this could really work with you, how this can help you in the long term. It's an inconvenience at that moment, but then you might have something better later on. And I could think of several instances of that. That's another reason to stay calm during the whole thing. So that's all I have for now. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace and many blessings.